What if the smallest act of kindness could uncover a hidden hero? What if a simple hot dog, handed over on a cold street corner, could unravel a story of unimaginable sacrifice? What if the person you passed by every day, unnoticed, carried a past heavier than the world on their shoulders? In the heart of Chicago, where the biting wind off Lake Michigan slices through even the thickest coats, a story waits to be told. It's a story of broken souls, quiet courage, and the kind of redemption that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. But let's start with a man who thought his fight was over. A man whose name was once spoken with reverence, now forgotten beneath layers of grime and despair. His name is Jack Thompson, though nobody on these streets bothers to ask. At 52, Jack's a ghost of who he once was, a tall frame stooped under the weight of memories. His hands, calloused and scarred, tremble as he clutches a tattered army surplus jacket. The olive green faded to a sickly grey. His eyes, once sharp and piercing, are now clouded, staring vacant at the cracked pavement of Michigan Avenue as if searching for something or someone long gone. The beard on his face is untamed, speckled with grey, and his boots, worn thin at the soles, slap against the concrete with a hollow rhythm. But it's the dog tags hidden beneath his threadbare shirt that tell the real story. Tags he hasn't taken off in decades, even when the hunger gnaws so deep he can barely stand. They clink softly against his chest, a silent reminder of a life he can't escape, a war he can't unsee. Jack's been on these streets for years now, a fixture as much as the towering skyscrapers or the L trains rattling overhead. He's part of the invisible army of the homeless, the kind folks glance at, then quickly look away from while clutching their Starbucks cups a little tighter. It's late November, and the city is already decked out for the holidays. Twinkling lights strung across lampposts, the faint jingle of Christmas carols drifting from storefronts, and the scent of roasted chestnuts mingling with exhaust fumes. But for Jack, the holiday cheer is just another layer of noise, another reminder of how far he's fallen. He huddles in the shadow of a bus stop near Millennium Park, the bitter wind tearing at his face, his breath fogging in the frigid air. His cardboard sign, scribbled with a shaky "Veteran, please help," leans against a rusted trash can, ignored by the hurried crowds bundled in scarves and puffy coats. Every so often a coin or two clinks into the dented tin can at his feet, but it's never enough. Not for a hot meal, not for a night out of the cold, not for the kind of peace he hasn't known since he was a young man shipped off to a desert hellhole. Jack doesn't talk much, not anymore. His voice, once commanding, is now a low rasp, worn down by years of shouting over mortar fire and then by years of shouting at nothing at all. Nightmares that wake him in the dead of night, drenched in sweat, even when the pavement beneath him is ice cold. He's got a spot under the overpass near the Chicago River when the shelters are full, which is most nights. There he keeps a small stash of belongings in a ripped duffel bag, a crumpled photo of a smiling woman and a little girl, edges worn from being held too often, a chewed-up ballpoint pen he uses to scratch out half-formed thoughts on napkins he finds, and a single tarnished medal wrapped in a rag like it's both a treasure and a curse. He doesn't look at the medal often, can't bear to, but it's there, a weight heavier than the bag itself. His days are a blur of survival, a numbing cycle of scavenging for scraps, dodging cops who shoo him away from prime real estate near tourist traps, and trying to keep the cold from sinking too deep into his bones. He's learned the rhythms of the city, the morning rush when suited-up professionals power walk past him, the lunch hour when food trucks park nearby and sometimes toss him a half-eaten sandwich if he's lucky, the late afternoons when school kids giggle and point before their parents tug them away. Jack's learned to keep his head down, to not flinch when someone mutters, "Get a job," under their breath, to not let the pity or the disdain carve any deeper into what's left of his pride. But beneath the surface there's a storm brewing, a quiet ache that flares up every time he hears a car backfire and his body instinctively ducks, or when he catches a glimpse of a flag flapping in the wind and his chest tightens with a mix of reverence and rage. He's a man haunted by ghosts he can't outrun, a soldier who came home but never really returned. Thanksgiving came and went a few days ago, and Jack spent it like he spends most holidays, alone scrounging for leftovers behind a family diner near Lincoln Park. The smell of turkey and stuffing lingered in the dumpster, a cruel taunt as he fished out a few cold dinner rolls and a soggy slice of pie. He muttered a quiet thanks to no one in particular, a habit from a time when gratitude was second nature, back when he still believed in something bigger than himself. Now belief is a luxury he can't afford. He's just trying to make it through another day, another night, another winter that feels colder than the last. But there's something eating at him, something beyond the hunger or the frostbite creeping into his fingertips. It's a memory, a promise he made long ago, in a dusty village halfway across the world, to a buddy who didn't make it back. A promise to live, to honor the ones who couldn't. And every day Jack wakes up on these streets, he feels like he's breaking it a little more. This morning, like every morning, Jack shuffles to his usual spot near the bustling corner of Michigan and Ohio Street, where the foot traffic is heavy and the chance of $1 or $2 is slightly higher. The city is alive with its usual chaos, horns blaring, construction crews hammering away, a street performer strumming a guitar for spare change a block over. Jack settles in, his cardboard sign propped up, his tin can ready, his eyes fixed on nothing in particular. He's used to the invisibility by now, the way people's gazes slide right over him like he's part of the scenery, no different from a pigeon or a crumpled newspaper blowing in the wind. He's used to the loneliness too, though it cuts deeper on days like this, when the holiday decorations remind him of a table he'll never sit at again, laughter he'll never hear. He pulls his jacket tighter, the worn fabric offering little against the chill, and lets out a slow, shuddering breath. Just another day, he tells himself. Just get through it. But today isn't just another day. Today, something shifts in the air, subtle at first, like the first ripple on a still lake before a storm. A young woman, bundled in a bright red coat and a knit hat pulled low over her ears, steps out of the crowd. Her name is Emily Carter, a 20-something barista on her lunch break, clutching a paper bag from a nearby street cart. She's got a tired slump to her shoulders, the kind that comes from pulling double shifts and scraping by on tips. But her eyes are kind, searching, the kind of eyes that actually see. She slows as she nears Jack, hesitating for just a moment, her breath catching in the cold air. Then, with a small, almost shy nod to herself, she steps closer, crouching slightly to meet his level. In her hand, she holds out a foil-wrapped hot dog, still warm, steam curling faintly from the edges of the wrapper. "Hey, thought you might be hungry," she says softly, her voice cutting through the city noise like a whisper in a cathedral. "Got this from Lou's cart over there. Best in town, I swear." Jack blinks up at her, caught off guard. He's used to handouts. Occasional coins, a half-empty water bottle, maybe a granola bar from a guilt-ridden passerby. But this feels different, personal. Her words hang between them, simple but heavy, and for a moment, he doesn't know how to respond. His throat tightens, a lump forming where words used to be. He reaches out slowly, almost reluctantly, his scarred fingers brushing against the warm foil as he takes the hot dog. "Thank you, miss," he manages, his voice rough as gravel, barely audible over the wind. But it's not just the food he's thanking her for, it's the fact that she looked at him, really looked, like he's more than just a shadow on the street. Emily offers a small smile, a flicker of warmth in the cold before standing and turning to go. But as she does, something slips from Jack's jacket, unnoticed by her but not by him. A small folded piece of paper, yellowed with age, that flutters to the ground like a fallen leaf. He freezes, his breath hitching, as he stares at it, lying there on the dirty pavement. That paper isn't just trash, it's a letter, one he's carried for over 20 years. The last words written to him by someone who didn't come home. Words he's read 1,000 times in the dark. Words that keep him tethered to a pain he can't let go of. And as he reaches for it with trembling hands, a memory slams into him like a gunshot. Sandy boots on foreign soil, a laugh cut short by an explosion, a promise made under a blood-red sky. His chest heaves, the hot dog forgotten in his lap, as the weight of that day crashes over him all over again. But there's something else on that paper, something he hasn't noticed until now, not in all the years he's carried it. A name, scrawled in a different hand at the bottom, a name that wasn't there before. Or was it? A name tied to this very city, to a life he thought he'd left behind forever. And in that moment, as the wind threatens to snatch the letter away, Jack realizes that this act of kindness, this simple hot dog, might have just opened a door to a past he's been running from for far too long. A past where he wasn't just a broken man on the street, but a hero who saved lives and lost everything in the process. Jack sits frozen on the cold pavement, the foil-wrapped hot dog still in his lap, forgotten as quickly as it was given. The letter trembles in his scarred hands, the yellowed paper catching the dull grey light of the November sky. That name at the bottom, scribbled in a jagged hand he didn't recognize until now, rips through him like shrapnel. Daniel Harper, Chicago, 1999. It's not just ink on a page. It's a ghost rising from the desert sands of a war he's fought every night in his dreams. His breath comes in short, ragged bursts, fogging in the frigid air, and his fingers tighten around the letter as if letting go might erase the last tether to a life he barely remembers. How did he miss this? For 20 years, he's carried these words, the last from his best friend, Mikey, who bled out in his arms under a sky stained red with violence. 20 years of reading and rereading in the dark, under overpasses and in alleyways, clinging to Mikey's final plea to keep going. And yet, this name, Daniel Harper, has been there hidden in plain sight, a message he was too broken to see. Guilt surges through him, a tidal wave that drowns out the city noise around him. He failed Mikey once by not saving him, and now he's failed him again by ignoring this, whatever it is. His chest aches not from the cold but from the weight of regret, sharp as a bayonet. What was he supposed to do with this name? Find this man? Deliver a message he doesn't even understand? Jack's mind screams that he's not the man for this, not anymore. He's a shell, a nobody, a stain on Michigan Avenue that people step around. But beneath the self-loathing, a spark of fear flickers. He's terrified of what he'll find if he digs into this. Terrified that facing this Daniel Harper will mean facing the parts of himself he's buried deeper than the medals in his duffel bag. The wind picks up, slicing through his tattered jacket, threatening to yank the letter from his grip. He stuffs it back into his pocket with a trembling hand, but the weight of it feels heavier now, like it's not just paper, but a grenade waiting to detonate. Around him, the city pulses with its indifferent rhythm. Horns blare, boots scuff past. A woman's laughter cuts through the air like a memory of something he once had. Jack's eyes dart to the hot dog, the foil catching a sliver of light from a nearby holiday display. That small act of kindness from Emily, the young woman in the red coat, gnaws at him. Why did she stop? Why did she see him when no one else does? It's a crack in the armor he's built, a reminder that he's still human, still capable of being touched by something as simple as a warm meal. But with that warmth comes pain, a raw, jagged thing that claws at the numbness he's cultivated. He doesn't want to feel. Feeling means remembering, and remembering means reliving every loss, every scream, every face he couldn't save. He mutters to himself, a low rasp barely audible over the wind. Should have just walked on, miss. Should have left me be. But even as he says it, he knows he doesn't mean it. That hot dog, that moment of being seen, has shifted something inside him, and now there's no going back to the invisibility he's hidden behind for years. Jack's gaze falls to the cardboard sign at his feet, the scrawled "Veteran, please help" smudged from the damp. He stares at it like it's a lie, because asking for help feels like admitting defeat, and he's already lost too much. But that name, Daniel Harper, burns in his mind, a puzzle piece he can't ignore. He knows he can't sit here forever, not with this new weight pressing down on him. He needs to move, to do something, even if every bone in his body screams to stay put, to let the cold numb him until he can't think at all. Standing is a battle of its own. His knees creak, his back protests, and the hunger that's always there gnaws deeper as he forces himself up. He clutches the tin can with a few coins rattling inside, slings his duffel bag over his shoulder, and starts walking, no clear destination in mind, just a desperate need to outrun the thoughts closing in. The crowds part around him, as they always do, but today their avoidance stings more, each averted gaze a reminder of how far he's fallen from the man who once led soldiers into battle. He moves against the flow of foot traffic, heading north along Michigan Avenue, past the glittering storefronts with their candy cane displays and mannequin families smiling behind glass. It's a mockery of everything he's lost. Thanksgiving dinners with a wife who left when the nightmares got too loud, a daughter who doesn't know him anymore. Each step feels heavier. The dog tags under his shirt, clinking like a metronome of guilt. He tells himself he's just walking to stay warm, but deep down he knows he's searching. For answers, for absolution, for a reason to keep that promise to Mikey. The obstacles aren't just in his head. The city itself seems to push back. A cop on the corner gives him a hard stare, hand resting on his baton, a silent order to keep moving. Don't loiter, don't exist too loudly. Jack dips his head, avoiding eye contact, but the humiliation burns. He's not a threat, not a criminal, but to them, he's just another problem to sweep away from the tourist traps near the Magnificent Mile. Further on, a group of college kids in expensive parkas snicker as they pass, one muttering, "Man, get a job already," loud enough for Jack to hear. The words hit like bullets, each one piercing the fragile pride he's got left. He wants to snap back to tell them he fought for their right to stand there and mock him, but his voice stays locked in his throat, choked by years of silence. Instead, he keeps walking, the cold biting into his fingertips, the soles of his boots flapping against the pavement. But it's not just the external barriers wearing him down. It's the memories that ambush him at every turn. Her car backfires 2 blocks over, and his body reacts before his mind does. Shoulders hunching, hands clenching into fists, heart hammering like he's back in a war zone waiting for the next blast. He stops, leaning against a lamppost, catching his breath as the flashback fades. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cold, and he mutters apologies to no one, to Mikey, to the men he couldn't bring home. "I'm trying, damn it, I'm trying." But trying feels like drowning, and he's not sure how much longer he can keep his head above water. He finds himself near the Chicago River, the water a dark, sluggish mirror reflecting the overcast sky. The iconic Wrigley building looms nearby, its white terracotta facade a stark contrast to the grime of Jack's world. He's always felt small here, dwarfed by the city's history and grandeur, but today the feeling is suffocating. He slumps onto a bench near the river walk, the iron cold through his thin jacket, and pulls out the letter again. His hands shake as he unfolds it, eyes skimming past Mikey's familiar scrawl to that name at the bottom. Daniel Harper, Chicago, 1999. What did it mean? Was this man a friend, a family member, someone Mikey wanted Jack to find? Or was it a debt, a burden Mikey passed on because he knew he wouldn't make it back? Jack's mind spins with possibilities, each more painful than the last. He remembers Mikey's last moments too vividly, blood soaking into the sand, the weight of his friend's hand in his, the whispered, "Look after 'em," that Jack still doesn't fully understand. Did them mean this, Daniel? Did Jack fail that too? His fingers trace the words, the paper so fragile it might crumble under his touch, and a sob catches in his throat. He hasn't cried in years, not since the first night on the streets, but now the tears burn hot behind his eyes, threatening to spill. He can't do this. He can't face another ghost, another piece of a past that already broke him. But throwing the letter away isn't an option. It's all he has left of Mikey, of the man he used to be. As he wrestles with the weight of it all, a shadow falls over him. He looks up, startled, to see Emily, the woman from earlier, standing a few feet away, clutching her red coat tighter against the wind. Her face is a mix of concern and hesitation, like she's not sure if she should have come back. "I saw you walking off," she says, her voice soft but steady. "Looked like something was wrong. I thought maybe you needed someone to talk to." Jack stares at her, caught off guard again by her kindness, by the fact that she didn't just keep walking like everyone else. His first instinct is to push her away, to growl that he's fine, that he doesn't need pity, but the words don't come. Instead, his throat tightens, and he looks down at the letter in his hands, unable to meet her gaze. "Ain't nothing you can help with, miss," he mutters, but there's no venom in it, just exhaustion. Emily doesn't leave. She sits on the bench a respectful distance away, her hands in her lap, watching the river instead of him, giving him space to breathe. "Maybe not," she says quietly, "but sometimes just sitting with someone helps. I've had my share of rough days, you know. Doesn't fix anything, but it makes the weight a little lighter." Her words hang there, simple but piercing, and Jack feels something crack inside him. He's not used to this. Someone staying, someone caring enough to sit in the cold just to keep him company. It's a kindness he doesn't know how to accept, but he's too tired to push it away. They sit in silence for a long moment, the river lapping softly below, the distant hum of traffic a reminder of a world that keeps moving without them. Then Emily speaks again, her tone careful, like she's treading on thin ice. "That paper, it looked important. I saw it fall earlier. Didn't mean to pry, but is it something you've been carrying a long time?" Jack tenses, his grip on the letter tightening. He doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to drag this stranger into the mess of his past. But her voice isn't judgmental, isn't pushing, just curious, gentle, in a way that disarms him. He lets out a shuddering breath, the cold air stinging his lungs. It's from someone who didn't come back," he says finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "A friend. Best man I ever knew. This is all I got left of him." Emily nods slowly, her eyes soft with understanding, though she can't possibly grasp the depth of what he means. "I'm sorry," she says, and it's not the empty apology he's heard 1,000 times from passers-by. There's weight to it, like she feels the ache behind his words. Must be heavy carrying that, but maybe it's not just a letter. Maybe it's asking you to do something, even if it's hard. Her words hit too close, stirring the guilt and fear he's been wrestling with. He looks at her then, really looks, and sees not just a kind stranger, but a mirror of his own loneliness. Someone else who knows what it's like to carry burdens alone. The conversation shifts something in Jack, though he can't name it yet. He folds the letter and tucks it away, his mind racing with what Emily said. Maybe it's asking you to do something. He doesn't want to believe it, doesn't want to face whatever this Daniel Harper represents. But her presence, her words, have planted a seed he can't ignore. Still, the obstacles loom large. Where would he even start? He's got no money, no resources, just a name and a city he already knows too well for all the wrong reasons. And the deeper fear, the one he can't voice, is that finding Daniel might mean reliving the worst day of his life, the day he lost Mikey, the day he lost himself. He stands abruptly, the movement jerky, his body protesting the cold that settled into his bones. "I gotta go," he says, not meeting Emily's eyes. "Thanks for this. But I can't..." He cuts himself off, not sure what he even means. Can't what? Can't face it. Can't accept help. Emily doesn't push. She just nods, standing too, her hands stuffed in her coat pockets. "If you ever need someone to listen, I'm around. Work at the coffee shop on Ohio most days. Just take care of yourself, okay?" There's a plea in her voice, subtle but real, and it lingers with Jack as he nods curtly and turns away, heading back toward the Riverwalk's edge. Alone again, Jack's thoughts spiral. He walks aimlessly along the river, the city's skyline reflected in the water like a taunt of everything he's not a part of. The name Daniel Harper echoes in his mind, a drumbeat he can't silence. He pulls out the crumpled photo from his duffel, the one of the smiling woman and little girl, his wife and daughter, faces he hasn't seen in over a decade. Looking at them hurts, always has, but today it's worse. What would they think of him now, chasing ghosts and half-forgotten promises, while he can barely keep himself alive? He traces his thumb over the photo's worn edge, a silent apology for failing them too. But beneath the shame, a new determination flickers, fragile but real. Mikey's letter isn't just a memory. It's a mission, one he's ignored for too long. And maybe finding this Daniel Harper is the only way to make things right, not just with Mikey, but with himself. The thought terrifies him more than any battlefield ever did, because it means opening wounds he thought were scarred over, means risking what little he has left of his soul. But sitting still, doing nothing, feels like a different kind of death, one he's not sure he can survive. Hours pass, and the day bleeds into dusk, the city lights twinkling like stars against the darkening sky. Jack finds himself back near Millennium Park, the looming steel of Cloud Gate, the bean, as everyone calls it, reflecting distorted versions of the world around him. He stares at his own warped reflection in the sculpture's surface, a hunched figure barely recognizable as human, let alone as the soldier he once was. It's a fitting image, a broken mirror of a broken man. But as he stands there, the weight of the letter, of Emily's words, of Mikey's memory, presses down harder than ever. He can't keep running from this. He can't keep letting the cold and the hunger and the shame define him. If there's even a chance that finding Daniel Harper means honoring Mikey's last wish, doesn't he owe it to him to try? Doesn't he owe it to himself to fight one last battle, even if it's just against his own demons? His hands clench into fists, the tin can of coins rattling in his pocket, a reminder of how little he has to work with. But resources aren't the real barrier. It's the fear, the doubt, the voice in his head telling him he's not worth saving. He pushes it down, forces it silent, if only for a moment. Jack takes a deep breath, the icy air burning his lungs, and makes a decision that feels like stepping off a cliff. He's going to find Daniel Harper, whoever he is, wherever he is. He doesn't know how, doesn't know where to start, but he knows he can't sit on this any longer. The promise he made to Mikey, to live, to honor the ones who couldn't, has been dormant too long, buried under years of survival and despair. Now it's awake, clawing its way to the surface, demanding to be reckoned with. He mutters under his breath, a vow to the wind, to the city, to the friend he lost. "I'll find him, Mikey. I'll do this for you. I swear it." The words are shaky, but they carry a resolve he hasn't felt in years, a spark of the man who once stared down death and didn't flinch. He turns from the bean, his reflection disappearing behind him, and starts walking with purpose for the first time in a long time toward a public library he knows stays open late. Maybe there, he can start digging old phone books, public records, anything with a trace of this name. It's a long shot, a needle in a haystack the size of Chicago, but it's a start. And for the first time in years, a start feels like something close to hope. As he moves, he glances at the hot dog still in his hand, the foil now cold, but the gesture behind it still warm in his memory. He unwraps it slowly, takes a bite, and lets the small act of kindness fuel him, if only for a little while. And if you're moved by stories like Jack's, where even the smallest connections can spark the biggest changes, consider subscribing to our channel for more. We're here to dive deep into the human heart, one story at a time. Jack doesn't know what he'll find at the end of this road, redemption, pain, or something he can't even imagine. But as the city lights flicker around him and the weight of his past presses close, he knows one thing for certain. He's not just fighting for Mikey anymore. He's fighting for himself. And that fight, more than any war he's ever faced, might be the hardest battle of all. Jack shuffles through the glass doors of the Harold Washington Library, the grand building towering over him like a fortress of knowledge he doesn't belong in. The warmth inside hits him like a wave, a sharp contrast to the biting cold of the Chicago streets, but it doesn't ease the knot in his chest. His boots leave faint smears of grime on the polished floor, and he feels the weight of curious stares from patrons bundled in clean coats, clutching books or tapping away at laptops. He keeps his head down, clutching his duffel bag like a lifeline, the letter with Daniel Harper's name burning a hole in his pocket. The decision to come here, to start digging for answers, feels like a grenade he's pulled the pin on. There's no turning back now, and the explosion of truth, whatever it may be, looms closer with every step. His hands tremble as he approaches a public computer station, the bright screen glaring at him like an interrogation light. He's out of his depth, a man who hasn't touched a computer in over a decade, whose last battle was fought with rifles, not keyboards. A young librarian, her name tag reading Marissa, notices his hesitation and walks over, her voice gentle but professional. "Need help with something, sir?" Jack's instinct is to brush her off, to mutter he's fine, but the desperation in his gut overrides his pride. "Looking for someone," he rasps, his voice low, almost ashamed. "Name's Daniel Harper. Chicago. Might be from 99 or before." Marissa nods, no judgment in her eyes, and sits beside him to guide his clumsy fingers over the keys, pulling up public records and old directories. Each click feels like a step deeper into quicksand, the tension coiling tighter in his chest. What if Daniel's dead? What if he's alive and wants nothing to do with Jack, with the ghosts of a war he might have buried long ago? The screen flickers with results. Too many Daniel Harpers, scattered across the city and beyond, a needle in a haystack he's got no tools to find. His breath hitches, frustration boiling over as he slams a scarred hand against the desk, drawing a few startled glances. "I don't even know what I'm doing," he mutters, more to himself than Marissa, his voice thick with the weight of years of failure. She places a reassuring hand on his shoulder, a touch so foreign to him it makes his skin crawl, but her words cut through the fog. "Sometimes it's not about finding them right away. It's about trying. Keep going. I'll print these for you. Start with the closest ones." The printer hums, spitting out a list of addresses and phone numbers, a map of possibilities that feels more like a minefield. Jack takes the papers with shaking hands, the weight of this small progress crushing him. He started something he can't stop, and the fear of what he'll uncover, of reliving Mikey's death, of facing a man who might hate him for what he couldn't do, claws at his insides. Every name on that list is a potential Pandora's box, and he's not sure he's strong enough to open even one. But Mikey's whispered, "Look after 'em," echoes in his skull, louder now, a command he can't ignore, no matter how much it hurts. Days bleed into nights as Jack begins his search, each step a battle against his own body and mind. The cold of late November deepens, the wind off Lake Michigan slicing through his threadbare jacket like a knife, but he presses on, fueled by a stubborn resolve he thought was long dead. He uses the few coins in his tin can to buy bus fare, trudging to addresses across the city, from rundown tenements in Southside to modest houses in Rogers Park. At each stop his heart hammers, expecting rejection or worse, expecting a door slammed in his face, a reminder that he's a nobody, a ghost chasing ghosts. Most of the Daniel Harpers are wrong, too young, too unrelated, or just not home. One man, a grizzled mechanic with no connection to the war, takes one look at Jack's disheveled appearance and snarls, "Get off my porch, bum!" before shutting the door with a bang that echoes like gunfire in Jack's ears. The rejection stings, but it's the exhaustion that's killing him. The ache in his bones from walking miles in worn-out boots, the hunger that gnaws deeper with every missed meal, the nightmares that jolt him awake under overpasses, Mikey's bloodied face flashing in the dark. He's running out of addresses, out of money, out of hope, and the weight of failure looms larger every day. What if this is all for nothing? What if he's chasing a name that means nothing, a final taunt from a past that won't let him go? He finds himself back near Millennium Park one evening, slumped against a bench, the glittering holiday lights mocking his despair. The city is alive with festivity, families bustling past with shopping bags, their laughter a blade in his gut. He pulls out the letter, the paper so worn it's almost tearing at the folds, and stares at Daniel Harper's name until his vision blurs. "I'm trying, Mikey," he whispers, his voice breaking, raw with a grief he can't contain. "But I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I got anything left." The tension is a vice around his chest, every breath a struggle, every doubt a weight pulling him under. He's on the edge of giving up, of tossing the letter into the wind and letting the cold take him for good, when a familiar figure approaches, Emily, her red coat a splash of color against the gray dusk. She doesn't say anything at first, just sits beside him, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm of his thoughts. "Still looking?" she asks softly, her eyes on the letter in his hands. Jack nods, unable to speak, the lump in his throat too big. She doesn't push, just sits there, her silence a comfort he didn't know he needed. And for the first time in days, the tension eases just enough for him to breathe. It's on a frigid morning, when the first snowflakes of December dust the city, that Jack finds him. The last address on the list, a small weathered house in Hyde Park, tucked between sagging row homes with peeling paint. His heart thunders as he climbs the creaking porch steps, his knuckles hesitating before rapping on the door, the sound swallowed by the wind. He's prepared for another rejection, another dead end. But when the door creaks open, a man in his late 50s stands there, his face weathered like Jack's, eyes sharp but burdened with a familiar kind of pain. There's a limp in his stance, a scar snaking down his temple, and Jack knows before the man even speaks that this is Daniel Harper, the right one. "Can I help you?" Daniel's voice is gruff, wary, but there's something beneath it, an edge of recognition as his gaze takes in Jack's tattered army jacket, the dog tags glinting at his neck. Jack's mouth goes dry, words failing him as they have so often these past years, but he forces them out, his voice a ragged whisper. I knew Mikey. Michael Brennan, he wrote me something before he died. Had your name on it, been carrying it for 20 years. Daniel's face changes. A flicker of shock, then pain, then something softer, something like understanding. He steps back, gesturing for Jack to come in, his own voice thick with emotion. Mikey, God, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Come in, soldier. It's cold out there. Inside, the house is modest but warm, a stark contrast to the streets Jack knows too well, and as they sit at a scarred wooden table, Daniel pours 2 mugs of black coffee, the steam rising like memories between them. Jack pulls out the letter, hands trembling, and slides it across the table. Daniel reads it slowly, his eyes glistening as they trace Mikey's words, lingering on his own name at the bottom. He was my little brother, Daniel says finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I was overseas when he died. Got injured a month before him, sent home with a bad leg. Mikey, he wrote me, said he had a buddy looking out for him, said if anything happened, that buddy'd find me. Guess he meant you. The words hit Jack like a punch, the realization that Mikey's last wish wasn't just a burden but a lifeline, a way to connect 2 broken men who'd lost the same soul. Guilt floods him. He failed to save Mikey, failed to find Daniel sooner. But Daniel's hand reaches across the table, gripping Jack's forearm with a strength that belies his age. You carried this all this time, Daniel says, tears in his eyes now, unashamed. That's more than most would have done. Mikey'd be proud you're here. I'm proud you're here. The forgiveness in his voice, the absolution Jack never thought he'd find, shatters something inside him. Tears spill down his weathered cheeks, hot and unfamiliar, as decades of pain pour out in silent sobs. Daniel doesn't look away, just sits there, a brother in grief, letting Jack break and begin to rebuild in the same breath. It's a moment of truth, raw and unadorned, where 2 soldiers, scarred by the same war, find a piece of peace in shared loss. Jack chokes out an apology for not saving Mikey, for taking so long, but Daniel shakes his head, his grip tightening. You brought him back to me, in a way. That's all that matters now. The transformation in Jack isn't immediate, but it's real, rooted deep in the marrow of who he is. Over the next weeks, with Daniel's quiet insistence, he starts to piece himself together, one jagged fragment at a time. Daniel helps him navigate the VA system, something Jack had long given up on, securing a small stipend and a spot in a veterans' transitional housing program. It's not much. A tiny room with thin walls in a building that smells of mildew, but it's a roof, a bed, a place to breathe without the wind slicing through him. Jack shaves for the first time in years, the mirror reflecting a face he barely recognizes, hollow but hardening with a purpose he thought was lost. His mornings aren't spent scrounging on Michigan Avenue anymore. Instead, he meets Daniel for coffee, the 2 of them swapping stories of Mikey, of the war, of the men they were, and the men they're trying to be. The nightmares don't vanish, but they're less suffocating with someone who understands, someone who's seen the same hell. Jack starts volunteering at a local shelter, dishing out soup to men and women who remind him too much of himself, each ladled a small act of redemption for the years he felt worthless. But the biggest change is in his heart. He's not invisible anymore. Not to Daniel, not to the folks at the shelter, not to Emily, who he visits at her coffee shop on Ohio Street, buying a black coffee with his meager funds just to say thanks for seeing him when no one else did. There's a sacrifice in this new life, though, a quiet renunciation that cuts deep. Late one evening, he sits on his narrow bed, the tarnished medal from his duffel bag in his hands, the weight of it heavier than ever. It's a Purple Heart, earned in the same battle that took Mikey, a symbol of bravery he's never felt worthy of. With a trembling breath, he wraps it in a cloth and decides to let it go, not to throw it away, but to give it to Daniel, a final tether to Mikey, a way to honor their shared loss by passing on the only piece of valor he has left. When he hands it over the next day, Daniel's eyes well up and he clutches it like it's Mikey himself, whispering a thank you that Jack feels in his bones. It's a surrender of the last piece of his old self, a shedding of the guilt he's worn like armor, and though it hurts, it frees him in a way he never expected. Winter deepens, the city blanketed in snow, and Jack stands beside Daniel at a small cemetery on the outskirts of Chicago, the air sharp with the scent of frost and earth. They've come to visit Mikey's grave, a simple stone marker Jack hadn't known existed until Daniel showed him the way. The snow dusts the headstone, Mikey's name etched deep, and Jack feels the ache of 2 decades compress into this single frozen moment. He kneels, his knees protesting against the icy ground, and places a single worn dog tag, his own, beside the stone, the metal glinting faintly under the pale winter sun. It's a silent goodbye to the soldier he was, to the war that broke him, to the friend he'll carry forever, but no longer let define him. Daniel stands beside him, hand on his shoulder, both men quiet, letting the wind speak for them. There's no grand gesture, no Hollywood ending, just 2 survivors standing in the cold, honoring a memory by choosing to live, to heal, to carry on. As they turn to leave, the snow falling heavier now, blanketing their footprints, Jack feels a weight lift, not all at once, but enough to stand taller, to breathe deeper. Time, he realizes, isn't just a thief. It's a slow, steady hand that bandages wounds if you let it. War takes, but healing builds, brick by painful brick. And in the silence of this cemetery, under a sky heavy with unspoken promises, Jack finds a recomezo, not a full one, not yet, but the first real step toward a life worth living. We all carry scars, some on the skin, some deeper, but it's in the quiet moments, in the choice to keep going, that we find our way back to ourselves. If Jack's story touched you, if it reminded you of the power of kindness or the weight of unseen battles, comment below with "I believe in second chances." Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, someone who might be fighting their own war, visible or not. And if you're moved by tales of redemption and resilience, subscribe to our channel. We're here to uncover the heart of humanity, one story at a time. Jack's fight isn't over, but for the first time in years he's not fighting alone, and that more than anything might just be his greatest victory.